On a Thursday afternoon, my phone rang just 2 weeks before our wedding. I still remember where I was. The kitchen smelled faintly of vanilla from the dozens of cupcakes I'd baked for our final tasting, and the invitation envelopes were still scattered across the dining room table. That call didn't just interrupt my day, it ended my life as I knew it. "Emily," Jake said, his voice flat. Too calm, too practiced. I knew something was wrong before he finished. "I don't think I can do this." I held my breath, but didn't let it out. "Not right away." I pressed the phone harder to my ear, as if I could force the words back into his mouth. "Proceed with what?" I whispered, even though I already knew. "The wedding." He said, I don't think I'm ready. I think I'm ready, but I'm not ready." I stood there, staring at my reflection in the microwave door, my face pale and distorted in the glass. It was surreal, like someone had turned the volume down on the world, and all I could hear was my heart pounding like a drum. We've been together for 6 years. We met in college, crossed the finish line, built a life together in Charleston, South Carolina. We picked the flowers, the venue, the song. His mom personally mailed our save the dates cards. I had a wedding dress in the guest bedroom closet, printed name tags, seating charts, and now, with one phone call, he'd put it all together. I asked him why. Of course I did. Over and over again. Why now? Why 2 weeks ago? But his answers were foggy. "I don't know." He said, "I don't feel good. I think I'll get over it." Off does he feel wrong, like we're an ill-fitting sweater. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just stood in the vanilla-scented kitchen, nodding silently, clutching my phone like it was both a lifeline and a weapon. When I finally hung up, I stood there for minutes, maybe hours. The world was still spinning, but I had fallen off its axis. The next day, I told my mother. Her face paled as the coffee cup slipped from her hand and shattered on the tile. She said nothing, just hugged me, like she had done when I had skinned my knee as a child. The whispers started quickly. Friends, extended family, shop assistants. Everyone wanted to know what was going on. Cold Feet One asked me with a sympathetic smile. "Are you cheating?" Another whispered not so quietly behind me. My florist texted me asking if we should postpone or cancel. I couldn't reply. My hands were shaking too much to type. Jake didn't call back. Not that day. Not the next. He disappeared into silence, leaving me to clean up the mess he'd made. I half expected him to show up at the door, flowers in hand, tears in his eyes, saying it was all a misunderstanding. But he didn't. What hurts the most is not the betrayal, but the silence. I canceled everything. Every call, the caterer, the venue, the hotel rooms for guests. Every time I said the words, "There will be no wedding," I felt a part of me fall apart. Part of me still wants to protect him. When people ask, I say things like, "He's not ready," or "We both need more time." I say those lies like they're prayers, hoping that maybe if I soften the blow to others, it will hurt less. But it is not. His mother sent me a box of candles we had picked out together for the ceremony. No note. Just a box, like returning borrowed items after a breakup that was never discussed in person. The box sat in my hallway for days before I threw it away. I didn't leave the house for almost a week. One night, I sat in the bathtub with my dress zipped up around me, soaked and heavy with water and regret. I cried until my ribs ached, until there were no more tears, just silence and a deep, unbearable stillness. But the world doesn't stop for my pain. My job as second-grade teacher started again on Monday. I showed up with a forced smile and blank eyes. The kids didn't know, of course. They hugged me as if nothing had changed. And in a way, their innocence reminded me that life goes on, even when mine seemed to stop. One of my students, Lily, showed me a drawing. It was of a woman in a big dress and a man standing next to her. "That's you and your prince," she said proudly. I smiled. A real smile, or almost. That night, I folded the wedding dress and put it away. I didn't give it away, not yet. But I also didn't want it staring at me like a ghost. Jake's absence was louder than any words he could have said. No flowers, no calls, no explanation other than, I wasn't ready. The man I thought I was going to marry didn't even have the courage to face me. And still, a small part of me whispers, maybe he will come back. I hate that part of me. I started journaling every night, not to heal, just to survive. I didn't cry at the grocery store today. I'd write, or saw someone who looked like him, but he wore brown shoes. Small victories, small wounds. Weeks passed, then months. Friends stopped asking about the wedding. My parents stopped worrying. Life went on as it had always done. But I was no longer the woman who baked muffins and arranged peonies. No, she's gone. What remains is quieter, sharper, more cautious. The girl who once dreamed of lace and promises has become a woman who can sit silently without breaking down. I'm learning to live again, not all at once, not gracefully, but one small choice at a time. Choosing to get up, choosing to walk away, choosing to smile, choosing not to look back, and then there are nights when the world is quiet and the hum of the refrigerator is the only sound in my apartment. I wonder, where is he now? Does he think of me? Does he regret it? I never know. But I know this. Maybe he ruined the wedding. But he didn't let me down. The Monday after the wedding, that never happened. I walked into my second-grade classroom at Riverbend Elementary School in Charleston with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. The kids were noisy, giggling, chasing each other with paper airplanes. For a moment, their energy was like static electricity colliding with the numb silence inside me. I set my tote bag down next to my desk and took a deep breath. "Okay, everyone," I said, clapping my hands twice. "Let's take a seat." Routine became my lifeline. Morning routines, lesson plans, spelling tests, all were small islands in a sea of emotional wreckage. At 7:30 a.m., I was Miss Carter, cheerful and calm, but at 5 p.m., when the last kid had left and the hallways were deserted, I sat at my desk in silence, staring out the window, wondering what Jake was doing. I don't tell my students anything. Of course not, but kids have a way of sensing things like the way the flowers on my desk wilt and will never be replaced, or the way my voice breaks when I read stories with happy endings. One morning, I found a folded piece of paper on my desk. On it was written in colored pencil, "Don't be sad. You are beautiful and kind. No name, just a little heart." I kept it in my wallet for months. My friends tried to help. "Let's go out," Amanda said. "You need a girls' night?" I went once, dressed up, laughed too hard at stupid jokes. But when the bartender played All Mine by John Legend, the song I chose for our first dance, I excused myself to go to the bathroom and never came back. I started seeing a therapist on Thursday. Dr. Lisbeth Monroe, kind eyes, soft voice, no perfume. At first, she didn't ask much, just let me talk. I told her about the cupcakes I baked, about the phone call, about Jake disappearing like a ghost, leaving behind RSVP cards and heartache. He didn't even say goodbye. I whispered one day, just disconnected. And from there, disconnection became a theme. Because that's exactly how I felt. Separated from my old dreams. Separated from my friends. Separated from myself. My mom still calls, of course. Tea, hugs, stew. Southern moms believe you can heal any pain with food and fresh sheets. I love her for that. But pain doesn't go away with mac and cheese. On a rainy Sunday, I finally did something brave. I opened a new notebook and wrote 4 words at the top of the notebook. This is not the end. That became my mantra, my silent rebellion. I stopped checking Jake's social media. I deleted our photos from my phone. I unsubscribed from the wedding blogs I used to read like prayer books. And little by little, I am alive again. Spring came early to Charleston that year. The cherry blossoms in Marion Square bloomed earlier than expected. I took it as a sign life goes on, even when you're not ready. One Saturday, I wandered into a small coffee shop behind King Street. It had a hand-painted sign, Miles and Moments, inside. The air smelled of cinnamon and fresh ground beans. Soft jazz played in the background. I wasn't there for company, just coffee and maybe a quiet corner to think. First time here? A voice asked. I looked up from the pastry case. He had messy brown hair, kind eyes, and an apron that was flowered at the edges. Yeah, I replied, just somewhere new. He smiled. Then you've come to the right place. His name is Daniel. He wasn't loud or showy, didn't try to charm me with words or compliments, just remembered my name the second time I came back, and my order the third time. He has a way of listening that makes silence safe. And for someone like me, silence is the scariest thing. Over the next few months, Miles and Moments became my second home. I would grade papers there, read books, sometimes just sit and watch the world go by through the misty windows. And Daniel, he never asked too many questions. But somehow, he always knew when I needed to talk. One evening, I told him, not everything, but enough. I was supposed to get married last October. I said, stirring my tea, but he ran away 2 weeks ago. No real reason. Daniel was unfazed, showed no mercy. He just nodded and said, it must feel like falling without a parachute. I laughed. It wasn't the kind of laugh you meant to make, just the kind that slipped out, surprising even me. That's exactly how it felt. He looked down for a moment, then said, my ex-wife left me 3 years ago. We tried to fix things so many times. Finally, I realized that she didn't want to stay. She just didn't want to be the one to leave. There was no drama in his voice, just facts. We didn't talk about it much more that night. But something changed. From that moment on, he was more than just a man behind a counter. He was a mirror that reflected not pain, but possibility. We didn't start dating right away. Healing doesn't happen that way. Instead, we build something quieter, softer, like trust built from whispers and time. I'll bring him apple muffins on Friday. He'll stuff the papers in my coffee bag. You are doing better than you think. Some things have to fall apart so better things can fall into place. One Friday, he gave me a small potted plant. You kept it alive. He smiled, unlike my success with succulents. I put it on the windowsill, and every time I water it, I remind myself I am growing too. By summer, I had stopped saying Jake in therapy. No more dreaming about weddings in the past tense. No more stress every time the phone rings. Daniel and I aren't official. We're really nothing. Just two people who've survived separate storms and are now, perhaps, learning to walk in the sunshine again. But one day, when I laughed so hard that I spilled tea on my shirt without caring, I realized that I haven't thought about Jake all day, not once. And that was the moment I knew. I am recovering. There are some names your phone should never light up again. Names that belong in old diaries, in boxes of memories buried deep in the closet. Not on your screen while you're stirring soup on a rainy Thursday evening. Jake Reynolds is an American actor. The name flashed in bold on the screen. For a split second, I thought it was a bug, or maybe one of those spam calls. But then I saw the number. Same area code, same last 4 digits I knew by heart. I froze, the water ladle in midair, as if the movement might scare the message away. My heart pounded against my ribs. I hadn't heard his name in over 4 years. Not since that phone call. Not since the silence that followed. I did not answer. Instead, I put the phone down on the counter and backed away, like it was something dangerous. A bomb. A ghost. He texted 30 minutes later. Emily, I know I don't deserve it, but do you have 10 minutes to talk? 10 minutes after 6 years together and one phone call ruined it all, I left a message without reply. But did I sleep that night? He didn't come. The next day, I told no one. Not Daniel. Not my therapist. Not even my diary, which had heard all the heartache before. I feared that even admitting it, saying his name out loud, would reopen the wound. But the truth was, the wound had never fully healed. I had built my life on it, like a house over a sinkhole, hoping the ground would hold. 3 days passed before curiosity got the better of me. I answered simply, "What do you want?" Jake. The input bubble appears immediately. Just a chat. I swear I won't bother you again if you say no. I waited an hour before replying. Tomorrow, 5 p.m., at the coffee shop on King Street. It wasn't miles and moments. I couldn't risk mixing the past with what I had built with Daniel. When I arrived, he was sitting down. He looked older, as if life had carved new lines into his forehead and dulled the light in his eyes. But still, he was Jake. The same smile, the same shoulders, the same familiarity that made my stomach clench. "Hello," he said softly and stood up. I don't hug him. I sat across from him and folded my arms tightly. He looked down for a moment, then up again. "You look happy." "It's me," I said. "What do you need?" Jake exhaled slowly. I screwed up. I said nothing. I was scared. He continued. It was terrifying. I woke up one morning and realized the wedding was in 2 weeks, and I panicked. "I remember that," I said dryly. He nodded. "I thought it was noble to leave, that it would hurt you less if I did it before we made our vows, but I didn't realize." He looked away. "It doesn't hurt you any less, does it?" "No," I replied. It destroyed me. The silence between us was heavy and full of years. "I got married," he said after a moment, about a year after I left. Her name was Claire. She was different, natural, wild. I raised an eyebrow. "So it's the opposite for me." "No," he said quickly. "Not the other way around. Just what I thought I needed. I didn't ask what happened. He told me anyway. She left, after 2 years. Said I wasn't emotionally ready. Said I never fully let her in because a part of me never left you. I clenched my fist tighter. I'm not here to beg for anything. Emily, he said. Not forgiveness. Not another chance. I want you to know that I regret it. Every day. Leaving you was the biggest mistake I ever made. My throat tightened. I wasn't prepared for this. For closure? Maybe, but not this kind of vulnerable honesty. He reached into his coat pocket and pushed something onto the table. A picture of us on the beach, the one his mom took at sunset, when we were still planning our Charleston wedding. I still have it, he said softly, even after the divorce, even after everything. I stared at the photo. We looked so young, so sure. Two people who had no idea what was about to happen. I slid it back. Why now, I asked. Why after all these years, Jake hesitated? Because you deserve to know the truth. And because I saw you last week. My stomach clenched. You were at the farmer's market, he said. With a man. You were smiling. And I realized you moved on. And I didn't. I don't know what to say. I'm happy for you, he said, standing up. Really, you look peaceful, and I hope you stay that way. He walked out, leaving behind only the faint scent of perfume and 1,000 unresolved emotions. I don't cry. Not when he left the cafe, not when I get home. Even when I pulled out the old box from the back of my closet, the box I swore I would throw away, but never could. The box that held the wedding invitation templates, the place card holders, and the half-written vows I never read. But I was still sitting on the living room floor, holding the beach photo in my hand, staring at two people I no longer recognized. I didn't tell Daniel about the meeting. Not that I'm hiding anything. But at that time, I still didn't understand what it meant. What Jake said, what he confessed, stirred something inside me. Not love, not longing, but a memory of who I used to be. A version of me that still believed that promises were forever, and people didn't leave without looking back. That night, Daniel called. His voice, soft and steady, anchored me. Are you okay? He asked. I hesitated, then nodded, even though he didn't see me. Yeah, I whispered, just thinking. He paused and said, sometimes, thinking is the first step to letting go. I knew he felt something. Daniel always felt it, but he didn't push it. And that quiet respect was the difference between him and Jake. Over the next few days, I found myself drifting more than usual. At school, I had to read emails twice before hitting send. At home, I stared out the window longer than I intended. I even walked past Miles and Moments one evening, but didn't go in, because I need to know something. Not about Jake, about myself. Is there some part of me that still needs closure? Or am I just afraid of facing the version of myself that once thought I was everything I wrote in my diary that night? Writing as if my hand was trying to catch up with my heart. I don't miss him. I miss the person I was when I loved him. I'm not confused. I'm just mourning something that never came true. The next morning, I saw Jake again. Accidental, unexpected, cruel. He's in the same bookstore that I frequent on Sundays. He's holding a copy of The 5 Love Languages, of all things. I almost turned around and walked away. But he saw me. We talked briefly, awkwardly. He asked how work was going. I told him I was taking the class on a field trip next week. He smiled and said it sounded good. Then he asked if we could talk again. And this time, I said no. Not because I'm angry, but because I finally understood. He was no longer a chapter I needed to reread. His story ended the day he left. When I got home that night, Daniel was waiting for me on the porch. He had 2 cups of coffee and that crooked little smile I had grown to love. "You look like you just closed the door today," he said, handing me a cup. I took a sip and nodded. "I did," I replied, and it felt great. We sat there in silence for a while, listening to the cicadas sing their evening song. Then, without looking back at me, he asked, "Have you ever loved him more than yourself?" I blinked. That question was more powerful than any Jake had ever asked. "Yes," I said. "Once, but not again." Daniel didn't answer, just reached out and gently took my hand. And in that moment, I realized something beautiful. Jake's return is not a challenge. It is a reminder. A reminder of how far I've come, of the woman I have become, about the love I now allow into my life, the kind of love that doesn't disappear when things get real. After that, I never saw Jake again. But every now and then, when I pass by that coffee shop or flip through my diary, I remember the girl I used to be, and I silently thank the man who broke her heart, to make space for someone who never wanted it. I thought that would be the end of it. Jake reappeared, expressed his regrets, and I, quietly and resolutely, chose to move on. But the ending is rarely so polite. 2 weeks after our last meeting, I received an envelope at school. There was no return address, just my name written in familiar handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before opening it in the empty classroom at lunchtime. There is a letter inside. Emily. I know I said I wouldn't be in touch again. And maybe that's selfish. Maybe I'm just chasing a version of us that doesn't exist anymore. But I can't stop thinking about what we lost. I made mistakes. Many. But the biggest mistake was leaving you. Can I see you one last time? Not to talk about the past, but to talk about what could still happen. Jake. I read it twice, then read it again. Every word was like a soft knock on the door I had locked. That evening, I sat across from Daniel in his cozy apartment above the cafe. The windows were open, letting in the gentle evening breeze of Charleston. We were sharing a glass of red wine, his hand resting lightly on my knee when I finally said it. Jake wrote to me. His hand did not move. I glanced up, expecting tension, or at least surprise, but all I saw was calm. "I think he might," Daniel said softly. "He's been somewhere else lately." I looked down. "I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize for your past," he said. "But if he's still a part of your present, I need to know." "He wasn't," I said quickly. "Not exactly, but he asked to see me one last time." Daniel's jaw tensed slightly. Then he nodded. "And you want to go?" I hesitate. "That's not a judgment," he added gently. "It's just a question." I stared at the glass in my hand. "I think I need to, not because I want him back, but because I want to make sure I never do." Daniel was unfazed. He reached forward, took the glass from my hand, and placed it on the table. "Then go," he said. "Ask your heart what it really wants. And if it's still me, I'll be right here." My eyes welled up with tears. Not because he was letting me go, but because he trusted me enough not to hold me back. I met Jake at Waterfront Park on a cool Saturday morning. He was waiting by the fountain, hands in pockets, a worried look on his face. "Thanks for coming," he said as I approached. I'm not here to reopen anything, I replied. Just to close it properly. He nodded. Fair. We walked along the road in silence for a while, the harbor sparkling beside us, the seagulls calling overhead. Jake finally spoke up. I still remember the look on your face when I called you that day. He said, You didn't cry? You didn't scream? You just listened. Like you were waiting for me to say it was a joke? No. I replied softly. No. He agreed. It wasn't. And I've regretted it ever since. He turned to face me. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I'll say this anyway. I still love you, Emily, and if there's even a little bit of you that feels the same way, I'll spend the rest of my life proving that I won't run away again. I held my breath. Not that I want to, but there was once a version of me that would give anything to hear those words. I looked at him, really looked. Jake Reynolds is an American actor, the man I was planning to marry, the man who broke my heart with just one phone call, and now, the man was standing before me with trembling hope in his eyes. 5 years ago, I melted, but 5 years ago, I was a different person. I love you, I said, completely, with everything I have. He nodded, his eyes lighting up. And you left me, I continued, when I needed you the most, when we were just days away from being a family. I know, he whispered. I begged myself to understand. I said, my voice breaking, tell myself that you were afraid, that maybe you were trying to protect me from a future that couldn't work out. But the truth is, you weren't protecting me. You were protecting yourself. He stepped closer, but I held up my hand. You didn't just break my heart, I said. You broke the woman I used to be, and I spent years trying to put her back together, not to become the person I used to be for you, but to become someone who would never accept love like that again. Jake blinked and looked away, embarrassed. And Daniel? I continued. He never made me doubt my worth, never disappeared when things got real. He didn't have to lose me to realize my worth. Silence, only the sound of water lapping beside us. Finally, Jake whispered, So this is goodbye. I nodded. That's the goodbye we should have said years ago. It looked like he wanted to say something more, maybe a plea, maybe an explanation, but instead, he just nodded slowly and respectfully. Thank you, he said, for meeting me, for forgiving me, even just enough to say this. I did not answer. I watched him walk away, shoulders heavy. Steps slow until he disappeared behind a row of blooming azaleas. And for the first time since that day, he left me. I don't feel any pain. I feel relieved. That evening, I returned to Miles and Moments just before closing. Daniel was wiping down a table, humming a soft tune. He looked up when the door creaked open, and when he saw me, his eyes said it all. You're back, he said softly. I walked towards him and stopped just a foot away from him. I'm sorry, I said. That needs to be considered. I know, he replied. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the letter Jake had written. Then I gently tore it in half and threw it in the trash can next to the counter. Daniel didn't say anything. He just walked over, put his arms around me, and hugged me like family. No questions, no conditions, just quiet, constant presence. That night, we lay on his couch, my head on his chest, our hands intertwined. I don't think I ever really loved Jake, I muttered. Daniel tilted his head. No, I think I love the person I think he can be. The person I try to be for him. He kissed my forehead. What about now? I just love who I am, and who I am when I'm with you. Facing the truth is not a matter of choosing between two men. It's about choosing the version of yourself that no longer needs to pursue the end. Because the truth is, the end doesn't always come with an apology. Sometimes it comes when you walk away and realize that you have nothing to lose. You have found yourself. It was a crisp Sunday morning in late October when I found myself standing in front of the mirror once again this time. Not in a tear-stained wedding dress, but in a soft, elegant cream-colored gown that felt like it belonged to me. Not with the girl I used to be. Not to a wedding I've never been to. But for the woman who struggled to return to wholeness. Outside, the garden behind Daniel's cafe had been transformed into something simple, warm, and loving. Strings of lights danced between the trees, twinkling like little stars. Customers gathered in small groups, sipping cider, hugging, laughing. Nothing fancy, nothing forced, just real. I took one last breath before stepping outside. Daniel was waiting for me under the autumn leaves. His eyes never left mine. There was no band playing, no loud music, just the sound of the wind and my heartbeat, steady and calm. As I approached him, he gently took my hand and whispered, "You've come back to me." I smiled. I never really left. We didn't exchange long vows, just simple promises to appear, to always be present, to never make anyone feel small or forgotten, to choose each other even on the hard days. There were tears. Yes, but not of sadness, of grace. After the ceremony, my mother hugged me tighter than ever. "You are radiant," she whispered. "This suits you better than the cathedral." I smile as I remember the original plans years ago. A grand wedding, ballroom, and drama. She was right. This is what love is when it doesn't try to prove anything. That night, Daniel and I danced under the stars, barefoot on the porch, music playing softly from an old speaker. No choreography, no performance, only his arms around me and the gentle beating of two hearts found their way home. 2 weeks later, I received another letter in the mail. This time is different. Jake wrote again, but not with hope or despair. "Emily, I heard from a mutual friend that you are married now. I want to congratulate you and thank you for meeting me, for being kind, for not carrying bitterness. I've started therapy, finally trying to understand myself. I'm not writing to ask for anything, just to say that seeing you happy has helped me realize what love really looks like. I wish you and your husband well. Jake." I folded the letter and put it in the drawer. Don't keep it, just to honor the last page. And then I lit a candle, sat on the porch with Daniel, let the cool breeze blow that chapter away. There are nights when I lie awake, not because of regret, but because of contemplation. I think of the girl in the wedding dress sitting in the bathtub crying. The one who whispered, "What did I do wrong?" into his pillow at 3 a.m. The person who waited for an apology but never received it. And I wish I could go back and hug her. Tell her you are not broken. You are getting better. Jake was never a bad guy, and I was never a victim. We are two people who met when we were too young, carrying too many fears and not knowing how to fight for love properly. He left, and for a long time, I thought that meant I wasn't good enough. But now I know the truth. Love is not proven by who stays for the good times. It's shown in who chooses to stay during the breakup, who doesn't run away when the beautiful parts fall apart. Daniel is not the hero who saved me. He just stood there. While I learned to stand up again, he never asked me to forget the past. He just holds space for my present and gently invites me into our future. One afternoon, while we were painting the nursery in the small house we had just bought, Daniel asked me, "If you could go back, would you change anything?" I stopped, holding the brush in my hand, my heart still calm. "No," I said, "because if Jake hadn't left, I wouldn't have found myself. And if I hadn't found myself, I would never have been ready to love you like this." Daniel leaned down and kissed the tip of my nose. "Good," he whispered, "because I will wait for you, no matter how long it takes. There is something sacred about not needing revenge. Don't look for apologies or validation. Simply choose peace over evidence. And I learned that it's the quiet victory that no one can take away from you. I don't need Jake to say sorry. I need to say that you are worth more than what you lost. And now, when people ask me why I don't talk much about my first wedding, I just smile, because that story doesn't end with a wedding. It ends with a beginning. And not every beginning needs bells and bouquets. Some people start out with a broken heart, and it ends with the woman choosing for herself. No need to close to move forward. Sometimes, the people we think will stay forever just leave, and sometimes, the people who leave become the reason we learn to come back to ourselves. Emily's story is not all misery. It's about healing, on choosing peace over ending, about not needing someone to come back in order to move forward. If you've ever been left behind, if you've ever lay awake at night wondering what you did wrong, I hope this story will remind you that you are not too much, too little, too much of anything. You're just with someone who doesn't know how to keep something real. And if one day they come back with apologies and regrets, remember, you don't owe them another chance. You owe it to yourself to live the life you deserve. If this story touches your heart, please take a moment to like the video. It really helps many women like you find their voice again. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Maybe you have experienced the same story as Emily. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button and tap the little notification bell so you don't miss our next story. She didn't know I had recorded every conversation until I played it back in court, because some truths are too powerful to be silenced.